Leave your comfort zone and be open to the surprises and the challenges that come your way. I think that's what Abram did when he left Ur in the Chaldees, and the disciples did when they left their boat to follow Christ. I was reminded of my great-grandfather, Peter Kay. Peter Kay and the Demuth clan grew up in Luxembourg along the Mosel River, today a beautiful wine country. Back in the mid-1800s, it was farmland. And he came from a family that had a number of boys, and of course the land couldn't support the whole family, so some of them had to leave. So Peter Kay, this was in 1854, and they had the land grants and so forth, and they heard about Wisconsin, you know, that place that has kind of rolling hills, and he thought, I'm going to go there and start a new life. So he traveled from Luxembourg to the western shore of Europe and took a boat across over to this country. He got on the boat, and by golly, there was this young thing from Gostigan, just a few miles from Ainan, his little home. Well, they knew each other, and it didn't take very long at all, and they fell madly in love with each other. And so they went to the captain of the ship and said, "Will you marry us?" And the captain did. And I wish I could say, and they lived happily ever after. But very shortly after that, you know, it wasn't a luxury liner that went across. Very shortly after that, she got sick, and she died before they got to Europe, and she was buried at sea. So, great-grandpa, Peter Kay, got back on the next boat, went back over, traveled to Luxembourg, to Gostigan, and said, "I need a wife." And so he married her sister. And so they traveled to the shore, got on a boat, went to the States, ended up in Milwaukee by a train, and then traveled south to the southwestern part of the state, southwest of Madison, to Hollandtown. And there they set up farming. And they had a child. Well, those were not very good old days. No such thing as good old days in that type. And there wasn't much food. And come spring, they were scrounging. And so, you know, most farmhouses had a cold cellar where they kept stuff cold to preserve it. And Mom went down into the coal cellar and she found some parsnips, which she cooked up, but they were spoiled. And both she and their child died. So, you probably know what happened next. Peter Kay got back on the boat, went back across, went back to Luxembourg, went back to Gostigan, the next town to where he grew up, and married the third sister, who then went on the boat, came across, got to Milwaukee, went back to the farm, and they had a whole slew of kids, one of which was my Grandpa Matthew. And from there, one of their kids was Eugene, my dad, and here I am, folks. You know, so, I mean, you know, just amazing that, you know, sometimes people say, "Oh, I wish I knew what the future was." Oh, I never want to know what the future is. You know, let's just take a day at a time. And I wondered, you know, with all of that, what kind of faith did that great-grandpa have? Well, I have three hints. The first was in 2002. I went back to do some family tree work, and I went to Seton, and I got to the Catholic Church, and I saw the baptistry in which he was baptized in that old church. And when I traveled down to Mineral Point, where my dad grew up, and went to Hollandale, if you walk in the back door of the church and turn to the right, the first stained glass window in the back of the church on the right says, "Donated by Peter K. Demuth." Pretty good indication that he was a man of faith, and all the kids and grandchildren were Catholic. You know, leaving, being aware, being open to see what's going to happen. That's what Lent is all about. Abram, he was well settled in Ur. That's Iraq, where the Tigris and the Euphrates come together. And he was doing great. Had a big clan, everything was there. And God said, "I need you." You heard the blessings. And today, because Abram said yes, we have thriving Jewish communities throughout the world. It was the patriarch, with Sarah, the matriarch of a whole new nation. And of course, we know the story of Peter, James, and John. They were fishermen, and they were making a good living. And then Jesus said, "Hey, you three, follow me. I'm going to make you fishers of people." And they said to their dad, "See you later. We're going on our own. We're following this master. We know he's an itinerant preacher. We don't know what's up, but we're going to follow him." So they were following a human being until one day, as you heard, Jesus said to the three of them, "Come on up this mountain." And there they discovered that this human master that they were following was transfigured into the divine. Even it changed his clothes. And the voice said, "This is my beloved Son. Listen to him." Can you imagine the transformation that took place at that moment in those three fellas? And then the transformation that followed when he said, "But if you're going to follow me, you got to take up your cross daily. And I am going to be faithful to God's will even if they kill me. And if they kill me, hang on, guys, it may happen to you too." That's what it's about, folks. We don't have to know the future, but we have to be open enough to see that God is speaking to us. And I would suspect every one of you maybe doesn't have the same story as my great-grandfather had, but you all have your stories. And every one of us have got to be able to be open to say yes to the next journey. I think it's summarized in those words of that second reading that we had today. Beloved, bear your share of the hardship for the gospel with the strength that comes from God. He saved us and called us to a holy life, not according to our works, but according to his own design and the grace bestowed on us in Christ Jesus, who destroyed death and brought life and immortality to light through the gospel. That's the call. That's the follow-through. The 40 days of Lent is the time to take that journey.